Hey guys, welcome to Newswave, your source for all things video game and tech related. Today we have a bunch of stuff to talk about. It's the 28th of March, and this is Newswave. So let's jump over to the big reveal of the day yesterday. We had Destiny 2 finally announced officially by Bungie and Destiny's Twitter handle on Twitter. Simply put, they put a picture up that said Destiny 2 and left the internet to do what it does best, and that is spread the word, and it spread it quickly, accumulating over 20,000 retweets and likes in a matter of hours. Not even, actually. It was very quick, and now everyone is trying to figure out the different features and when it's coming out, although we do know kind of at this point that it's probably in September, considering we did have those promotional leaks that put it around September 8th. I think a lot of people are very hesitant to believe those leaks, which is understandable because it's not from the developer themselves, so you shouldn't believe anything 100% that's not from them. But now that we have it, maybe those leaked documents or leaked promotional posters that showed September 8th, maybe they're true. Maybe it's early September that we can look forward to Destiny 2 coming out. I think the big question on everyone's minds is what platforms. We already know it's going to the PS4 and the Xbox One, but we don't have any official announcement on a PC release, which I think a lot of PC gamers would like to see. Have Destiny 2 finally come over, since a lot of PC gamers missed out on the first Destiny just because it wasn't there. Either way, we'll keep an eye for any gameplay footage that they show or announcement trailer. As of this recording, there is still just that picture on Twitter. Hopefully today or even tomorrow we do get some kind of trailer, just kind of cementing the release with some sort of gameplay or footage shown that relates to the story. Our next story has more to do with technology than anything else. Now, over the weekend, last week, they had a vote in the Senate that did pass along a repeal for an internet privacy bill, and this is going to allow companies like Comcast and Verizon to openly sell your internet history without any consent from you. Now, the original bill that is being repealed was set in place to stop these companies from doing that, and at this point, if you use the internet, it is affecting you. If you're watching this video, if you wake up in the morning and check the weather online, it affects you if you check your bank statements, and that's a big deal because now these companies can go around and sell your information to other companies. Now, I believe after reading through the documents, what we have is more of an anonymous amount of information, but still, they can track where you are going, sell it to advertisers, and at that point, they are free to do what they want with your information to figure out a way to sell you more goods or just get to know you better. Now, it has passed through the initial stage, which is the Senate. It still needs to go through the House of Representatives, and then it still could be vetoed by President Trump. But we still need to know if the representatives are going to be passing this bill, because right now it seems more like the Senate seemed interested in pushing this along for personal gain. Now, if that is the case, it looks really bad, but we'll have to see what happens when it comes to the House, since a lot of people are pushing for them to not vote it through. You can contact your representative, which I urge you to if you do not want this bill to go through, like most of us online do not. You can contact them, just let them know, hey, maybe we won't vote for you this time around if you push this bill through. Now, a lot of people are saying that they want to band together as one big community, crowdfund, and then buy their information. For that, I say, do you really think Comcast or Verizon will sell you information for any political figures who have helped them pass this bill through to then defame them? No, they won't. You have to get their permission to sell it to you first, and they're not interested in that. Also, I believe any of the information that's sold will remain anonymous, so no names will be attached to it. It's more of geographical or data compared to age, gender, things like that. And we got word that apparently Switch games released physically don't necessarily have to give you the entire game at launch to be considered a full game. I know that sounds weird, but hear me out for a second. LEGO City Undercover is coming out very soon, actually, and WB has decided to kind of do a workaround to get around having to use a large cartridge to accumulate what seems to be the 20 gigs of data for that game. So what they're doing is they're releasing to you about a quarter of the game and then having you download the rest of it at this point. That would place it about 7 gigs that you actually get on the cart that we know of, maybe it's less, and then you have to go through and download the other 13 gigabytes of data through your own ISP or internet connection. And without much surprise at this point, most users are really annoyed. I am too. I think it's a really bad move on WB's part. It's smart in a business sense. Now, we don't know everything behind the scenes if they needed to do this to keep the price the same, because the game cartridges, or at least the technology in those game cartridges, still are not cheap enough. then this at least gives them a way to release it at the same retail price in parity. Keep in mind though, this game is not a cheap game and it's coming in at $59.99 despite being released on the Wii U earlier for much cheaper. But if we find out this is a way for WB just to make extra money at fans' expenses by having them have to download a game that they have then purchased physically, that would be very bad on their part, and I hope that's not the case. I hope this is just something they had to do to make costs make sense, because yes, they are a company, they have to make money, but this seems really bad because what's the point in buying physical at this point since you're not getting the full game anyway? They might as well be selling us a little piece of paper with a download code inside. I'll get it physically just to see what it's like. That way you guys can find out too, because I know a lot of people at this point will probably just buy it digitally because does it really make sense to have what is essentially a little game pass for you to play it when you have to download it and take up your either physical space, which by the way, this takes up the half of your system memory right away at 32 gigs or 25 of what you actually get. 13 gigs takes up half of that, despite having the game card. Does no one else think that's crazy? I'm sure a lot of you guys think it is kind of crazy, but we'll see what happens when it comes out. I'm expecting some backlash, but then we'll probably be hushed out and we'll move on to the next thing after that. And if you're a PS4 Pro user, you'll be happy to know that you can finally watch all of your 4K videos from video files, like MP4s, on your PlayStation 4 Pro. This is done to an update with the media player on the PlayStation 4 Pro. Sony has now allowed you to take MP4 files on a USB, move them over to the system, and then play it natively on that system. It still doesn't have an ultra-high def video player for obviously a Blu-ray, ultra-high def Blu-ray, but it will at least give you a better alternative to having to stream. With what terrible compressions are now, you at least get something more. It's a little odd they didn't add MKV support, but I guess it's better than nothing using an MP4. Next thing up we have is YouTube. Of course, YouTube always seems to be in the technology news, and now they are bending to advertisers' will and removing advertisements from controversial videos, or at least what they assume to be controversial videos. What I mean by that is some people are reporting their videos being demonetized that may not be controversial. Maybe they are just reporting on a controversial subject, and that too can still tip advertisers off to not being too happy, and they get frustrated with YouTube. They boycott or pull their funding like places like Walmart have at this point, or Starbucks, and you start to have YouTube lose money. To them, it's easier to just demonetize all of these subjects as a whole, and then yes, it does sort of come up to censorship, because then YouTube is technically being censored by advertisers. I think that's the one place that can actually censor YouTube at this point, is the places that bring money to YouTube, because at that point, what is the point of YouTube to Google itself if it's not bringing in money? I mean, it's their business, they need to bring in money, which unfortunately means they have to answer to their boss, who are the advertisers. So if advertisers aren't happy, YouTube has to do something about it. It's not so much content creators. They definitely don't bend to content creators' will. They are much happier doing what they want and then letting us as content creators figure it out. Now, it won't affect this channel because we don't really deal with controversial stuff, but there are a lot of places that it will affect that don't necessarily deal with controversial stuff other than reporting on them. And really, you kind of have to adapt to the environment at that point and figure out a way to still either report on it or not report on it at all. What can you really do at this point other than listen to your boss, who is YouTube? Now, YouTube is at least trying to counter this whole thing, or at least try to fix this entire mess by allowing you to go through an appeal system, which some content creators will probably have to do more often than not, where you do submit a ticket essentially, and they will then look at your video or at least manually review it to see if it falls under any type of controversial subjects that they are trying to filter out for advertisers. Now, you can still put this stuff on YouTube, you just won't be able to monetize it or make any money for your efforts. It's also an interesting article put out on Digitimes, which is a Taiwan-based newspaper, and they had some interesting stuff to report on what was apparently going on over in the manufacturing. Now, if you don't know, some manufacturing does go on in Taiwan, especially for things like the PlayStation 4, and they are saying, or at least reporting in their newspaper, that Sony is planning, or at least manufacturing at this time, super slim PS4s. Now, I have a feeling they're trying to report that a PS4 Pro Slim is coming out, because let me tell you, that thing is pretty large compared to a regular PS4, or even now a PS4 Slim. I don't think they're going to make that other PS4 Slim any smaller. I think they'll probably just take that middle stack out of the PS4 Pro and launch it alongside the Scorpio this holiday season. It makes a lot of sense. Sony would like to put out what appears to be a new system that also does 4K alongside the Scorpio, and then put their lineup of games next to it, and really try to dwarf the Scorpio in terms of game support and maybe sleek factor, because I'm sure Scorpio will not be a thin system, whereas maybe a PS4 Pro Slim would be. This is, of course, not at all official by Sony. This is just Digitimes, who happens to be local to any of the manufacturing factories or anything like that, maybe getting word that this is happening and then reporting it as news on their site and their newspaper. We'll have to wait and see. E3 would be a good place for Sony to announce this, and that's honestly where I would expect it to be. And the last bit of news is actually pretty cool. It has to deal with Half-Life 2, which is odd, right? Figure we talked about Half-Life 3 by now? No. Half-Life 2. Apparently maps have leaked out that were planned for episodes that ended up being canceled. Now, a bunch of maps were leaked over on valvetime.net. In a thread, it's a forum where they do report this kind of stuff or talk about Valve at that point. And this ended up being leaked out by a user, and they showed off a bunch of them. And this one in particular caught a lot of people's eyes because it was one that was being developed in late 2005 by Junction Point Studios. And apparently this episode had everything. It had small puzzles, scripted sequences, fights, everything that was set up and ready to go, and it was going to be a snow-themed version of Ravenholm, but for some reason, it was canceled for no real reason at all that we can see, or at least one that's been made public. I think a lot of us who enjoyed Half-Life are very sad that this does not see the light of day at this point, but that doesn't mean it couldn't still come out. If it's leaked to this point, maybe it gets put out in some kind of alpha phase, and I'm sure diehard fans would finish it and release it, but we have to see from there. It's kind of cool to at least see what could have been, and realistically, what still could be, since they could still release this map as a crowdfunded thing where people come together, donate money or time, and finish it and release it for Half-Life. And that's it for Newswave today, guys. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. All of that good stuff. Definitely check back in every morning at 10 a.m. on the weekdays for up-to-date news about video games and technology. Let me know what you think about anything we talked about today in the comments down below. I'm very curious what your thoughts are on things like Lego Undercover, to see what your thoughts are on this whole Switch thing where they're going to release you part of the game and then it's up to you to download the rest of your internet. So I hope you have at least a semi-fast or reliable connection that's not going through something that could be capped by, say, a hotspot through your cell phone company. Let me know what you think about Half-Life. Maybe you're excited to see what could have been, and like I said, what could still be. Definitely let me know what you think about the ISPs as well, being allowed to sell your information without your consent. I think this is very important, that if you do not want this to happen, to get a hold of your representative, whether it's through email or phone, and just bug them and let them know that, you know what, you shouldn't pass this bill. That's it for now, guys. I will see you next time.